Okay, just want to welcome everybody tonight. It's 4:05. We're starting tonight for the joint meeting of contract negotiations. We'll call the meeting to order at this time. And we have a motion. Somebody call.
We don't need a motion.
Well, it's a board meeting. I thought we were going to call a motion. Open meeting.
Just opened it.
Okay, I just opened it. It's that. What's happened so far, before we just started, is Norm just passed over to Dina some additional ground rules that, so that somebody will know that that's taking place, and we have Richard's recording.
Introductions?
Nope, we're not going to do introductions. I don't think you need to do them, do you? We have them already on.
I think I've got, anyone new from last week?
Yeah.
Dina.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Well, let's do introduction.
why don't we do introductions then? We can start on this side here. Ed, you want to?
Ed McTernan, Director of HR for the SVSU.
Edward Turnoff, CDC.
Leon Johnson, Mount Anthony.
Dina Atwood, I am the board's legal counsel.
Jackie Kerr, BSD.
Holly Van Shasberry.
I'm sorry.
Holly Van Shasberry.
Okay.
Cindy Brownell Powell.
Renee Gordon, I'm the Human Resources Manager for the SVSU.
Lisa Dufresne, President.
Tim Burgess, Mount Anthony Middle School.
Lori Wright, CDC. Donna Marcoux, Hollister.
Norm Bartlett, Vermont NEA.
Elaine Moyat, Shaftesbury.
Marion Stevens, Powell.
Okay, thank you. We have those all down. We're ready to have a discussion here. And I'm going to turn it over to, well, Dina, well, I can have Norm just go ahead. You can chat. Norm, you can tell everybody what you just did.
Well, I just handed you a revised proposal for ground rules. As you may recall, we each made proposals at the last bargaining session. John, representing the board, and I exchanged a couple of documents between meetings. This is the association's revision, which I believe is acceptable to us. There were no issues, as I recall, in the first paragraph. The introductory paragraph just identifies the parties. The first thing that seemed to not be finally resolved was in number 2, and that was the issue of when proposals would be submitted, or original proposals would be submitted. We had talked about the third meeting, which was scheduled for the next meeting, but we got into some discussion about the meeting and the date, and I thought it might be easier for us to decide on the second, third, or fourth meeting, whenever they may occur, this being the second meeting. I think we have the third meeting scheduled on the 27th and the fourth meeting scheduled in June.
26.
What is it?
It's the 26th.
26? That's probably what I have written down.
Yep.
I also wrote them down at 3:30. 26, right? In any case, the association agrees with the board position that at some point we each have a right to know that the original proposals of the other side are on the table, so we can move from that point. It really is a matter of logistics on when that's going to happen. If we get to it, the association will submit its proposals today, and I don't anticipate any additional proposals. So from our point of view, we could agree to the second meeting, but the normal course of action is boards sometimes follow our proposals. So anyway, I think we should just make a decision on whether it's the second, third, or fourth meeting and be through with that. The board proposed that we use a strike-through underline format for new proposals. That's fine with us. I know in previous negotiations, I don't think I wasn't around last time. I was otherwise indisposed last time we negotiated, but I know when I bargained with Steve Stitzel before, he has introduced lots of the contract with underlines and strikeouts, and if that's going to happen, then this certainly helps us to not have to read the whole contract each time. So our proposal will indicate that, although it's somewhat of an abbreviated format, we will underline what new things we're proposing. The number 3 paragraph we discussed, I updated it to include what I hope are the proper emails and telephone numbers for the 4 people that are identified if there is a cancellation or change of meeting. My understanding is the notification could be to any one on each side. It doesn't have to be to both, but in case one can't be contacted. So we listed Nora Bartlett and Marion Stevens for the association, Dina and Ed for the board. I probably don't need it in the ground rules, but hopefully those are the right telephone numbers and right email addresses.
Yes.
And number 5 was, I don't think we had any disagreement. Number 6, the board proposed some more detailed language on what would happen and how proposals would be handled. I'm kind of anti putting down the procedures that we're going to use when we don't know what's going to happen. But in any case, we do think it's good practice that if there are tentative agreements, that we initial them, we retain copies for our records, and when we have an agreement, which we will eventually have, some agreements take longer than others, but when we have an agreement, then that would be put together in a tentative successor agreement completely for all the boards and the association for review, then ratification. And what I'm proposing is when all the parties ratify, because we have 7, when all the parties ratify, then we would sign the contract. And I know previously we've done it by circulating the contract around. We don't go through a formal process. I'm not suggesting anything like that change. Any way we do it that makes it official is fine with me. And so our counter proposal on ground rules, or counter proposal, eliminates some of the procedural things that the board was proposing, but we'd like you to consider this. The one issue that I jumped over, and probably the most important, is the association proposed in its original ground rules that all meetings be held in closed or executive session. That we know that is a point of contention. It seems pretty clear that it's legal. We've reviewed the right to know law, and also there's a very recent Vermont Superior Court decision in Franklin County that says that bargaining with employees can be the subject of a closed meeting. The St. Albans decision, the school boards asked for a declaratory judgment. We asked them to dismiss it, and the judge basically said there is no action because the way the right to know law works is that somebody has to make a complaint that you are operating improperly. We don't have any problem with the school boards communicating with the public through press releases, through press conferences. You could even have a SWVE or SVSU blog, and you might even want to hire a blogger at the central office to keep track of all the things. But we do think that it is restrictive to have meetings open. I'm assuming that you would not have caucuses open, that you would then have to state a purpose and vote each time before you caucus. And according to the law, you're required to only discuss that whatever item you have, come back, vote out of executive session to come back into open session. We would, on the other hand, because this public is in the room, we'd have to look for another room in the building where we'd go for caucuses. The other thing is that although you're all public figures, except Dina, and maybe aspiring to higher office, we're not. And I don't much care because I don't live here and I live on the other side of the state, but it seems to me that the members of our negotiating team should have some degree of privacy. And that might be better served by having meetings in executive session or closed session. And we'd like you to reconsider that. It is basically the rule, not the exception, that most bargaining is done in private session, in closed session, executive session. And in reviewing the law, with the right to know law, which specifically says bargaining with employees is a reason that you go into executive session. And this recent decision, Dina's probably shared it with you, but I do have a copy here someplace. Not there. There it is. This is just the, didn't you know it?
Get it.
I got,
We have to get like a lazy Susan in the
yeah,
middle or something.
I'm sorry.
That we could do.
If the table was about 2 feet narrower, we'd be in good shape. And, yeah, either that or I need my blackjack dealing skills. And here's some,
This is.
I don't have enough for everybody, but I think I made 6 copies of each to, in case there's something you want to review.
We have
The-
other-
This is a Superior Court case filed in Franklin County. It was decided on April 12th of this year. And it was on the same issue. The school board was saying, do we have to bargain in executive session? And the judge basically said, he didn't answer directly, but said there is no reason to believe that you have to because of the law and the way the procedure works. So that's our revised proposal on ground rules that we hope you will consider. And maybe before we go too far, I was just wondering what we think about submitting original proposals. If you'd like to do that, have the final day today, next week, or it's really irrelevant to me. It's just, once we get all the proposals on the table, then I think we have at least a feeling that we can go forward and try to get everything resolved.
In response to this, what I would say in terms of for the initial proposals, I think that from the board's perspective, they're about 99% done with
Okay.
what their initial proposal is. I think there are a couple items that we need to have more conversation about before we decide whether or not that's going to be an initial proposal or not. My expectation is that we should be able to present, absent hearing something from anyone here, that we should be able to do our initial proposals at our next meeting, which is the 26th. I'm going to keep the date correct in my head.
26.
Yeah, to do it on the 26th. Part of, and I do apologize for that, part of that is my schedule impeded having a meeting, one of the meetings that we needed to have. So I do apologize for that, and I will take the hit for that, slowing it up just a little bit.
I thought that was our original suggested date, was the third meeting, which would be the 26th.
Yes.
And I'm not sure whether the thought was we might submit earlier proposals and that would be the final date, or I generally take the position that we submit proposals, we just submit them.
Right, I
That we
think,
don't submit them over a period of years, it just doesn't help.
yeah, the board is working on a comprehensive proposal. So, anything that the board is looking at that they feel that needs to have a language change or a tweak, including, ironically, picking up more grammatical errors in the contract, as those of you who went through it last time know, there are some in there. So it would be a complete proposal from a complete initial proposal from our perspective. So I think that at least we can have that as I said, to present at our next meeting. In terms of I think the biggest issue with the ground rules, the first major issue with the ground rules that maybe if I could go back to is the issue and the idea of whether or not to be doing this in executive session or whether or not to be doing it in open session. You know, I will say this, I just completed, and we haven't had the agreement ratified, but I have just completed another labor negotiation in a district that is a little bit farther north of you all, and everything was done in open session, with the exception of when the board needed to caucus or if the association team needed to caucus. We broke, and people did, in fact, go to separate rooms. It is, from this board's perspective, not the intention by any means to put you on the spot as community members in and of yourselves, being part of that, part of the community that you also happen to work in. It is a concern for this board that there's transparency in what is done in terms of the community understanding what is going on in terms of how the school board operates, how contracts are in fact negotiated. It is something, and we can talk about this, and the board team can talk about this and take a break, but my understanding is, absent them telling me something different, so it's a very strong belief on this board to do the majority of the negotiations in open session. Norm, you may know a little bit better regarding the specifics on this, but in Colchester, which is up near Burlington, my understanding is that there was sort of a hybrid, if need be, which was that if there were things that the parties themselves thought should be in executive session, a discussion, then the decision was then made to hold perhaps part of a session in executive session. I don't know how, if I'm fairly and accurately representing that, so that might be something, Norm, as I said, you know a little bit more about. You know, it is, in terms of how the process works, it is a board meeting that's being called, and it is the board's obligation and decisions on whether or not they feel, in fact, there is something that would be brought up which would justify going into executive session. I don't dispute that there can be reasons for going into executive session during a contract negotiation. However, it is not from the board's proposal, from the board side, nor from my side, something that's a blanket proposition that all would be in executive session. So that is something, if that's what you're asking for, and it wasn't quite clear to me, because the language, all meetings shall be held in closed or executive session as allowed by law in section 3. You know, I can, as a lawyer, I can interpret that to mean exactly what I just said to you about how to do it. Or I can actually interpret it how I think you meant it to be, which is that you would like predominantly that everything is done in executive session. I'm understanding that correctly, that you would like everything, the default being everything in executive session.
When I use the word closed or executive, it just is, I think the general thought is it's closed. In other words, the public's not there, it's not secret. But it seems to me, I just, as I was trying to play this through, the first question was, was the board in executive session before we met tonight? It was obviously a board meeting. We didn't, when it says in the reason for executive session is there might be some disadvantage to the board to know that, to release some information, if you get, I would think if we, first off, I saw it this way. If you simply have a closed session, all of that stuff goes away. But if you have an open meeting playing under the right to know law, you vote to go into a caucus executive session. When you come out of executive session, you've got to vote. You've got to come out of executive session. if you like if you decide which day you'll submit final proposals, it seems to me you've got to record that vote in a public meeting. I don't think that the vote is consequential on whether it's the second or third meeting. But if it's some other issue, I don't know whether the vote, but the vote gets recorded at that point. When in a private session, it's I don't know how boards operate. I operate by consensus. So when we make a change, we've all agreed to it. We may not all be happy, but we all agree to just do it. But I just thought that it was made it, as I thought more about it, I just thought it just became more and more complicated when it seemed like when they drafted the statute, they took into account that collective bargaining with employees is certainly a special situation that they mentioned specifically. I understand the board's proposal to be open and transparent, but and we didn't propose any ground rule about press releases or any type of communication with the public. That's basically, that happens a lot, but basically that's up to the board, as it is up to the association. But it's primarily, will public meetings really kind of deter and stall the negotiations process from just going forward? Also, of course, I think what the reason everybody is concerned is that you can't have kind of an open discussion about things. You can't say something and then say, well, I didn't mean it, or I take it back. And I've just found that a lot of very productive negotiations are when people have the right to say something and not be bound to it for ever and ever. And because a lot of times I've dealt with boards when we couldn't get something agreed to, and it took us months to find out what the real reason was. It's easy to say no, but to find the real reason. So anyway, that's our determination. I've been through this before. I've bargained in public. We do this, and we've done it. We did it over a couple of years in Bellas Falls.
You just did it with the teacher one here too, correct?
I don't remember if it was.
Yes.
The teacher?
Yeah.
Teachers
Was it this
contract,
last
yes.
year?
No.
We were meeting downstairs. Where did we
No,
meet?
it was last year. It was
Yeah,
last
yeah,
year.
yeah. We've done it before. It's my first experience with public negotiations was in Burlington in the 70s. And the teachers used to insist on public negotiations because they thought they could do something might embarrass the school board. And we'd have 3 or 4 meetings, nothing would ever get done, and then we would declare an impasse, and the mediator would come in and close the meeting and would negotiate. And that, of course, is, hopefully we don't have an impasse or we don't have mediation. We'll settle this contract as we always do in friendly collegial style. But those are some of the complications, and I think the reasons that we would propose that they be an executive session. But we're not going to not negotiate, regardless of what you agree to.
I
We may sit with
expect no
our backs
less.
to the camera, and we may put the microphones up, but we won't do anything else.
Okay. I think that's one thing the board will in fact talk about. The other one that I needed clarity on is number 6, which is historically, in my historical perspective, is your last negotiation, and we did in fact, I think, very quickly, very, I thought, very much in a collegial manner resolved the contract. And so we didn't have to worry about the issue that every lawyer and every negotiator worries about, which is, oh my gosh, what happens if we can't do that, and going to impasse. And so in terms of the tentative agreements that you're putting forward, to be clear in 6 and 7, what you're saying is that tentative agreements will be submitted if we do need to go to fact-finding. In other words, there won't be or are you saying that they're off the table for going to fact-finding if we have a tentative agreement?
I think that the general practice, at least that I've always followed, I'm trying to think of the exception, where I had a school board that didn't, but is that if a tentative agreement's a tentative agreement, why would we take it to mediate? We wouldn't take it to mediation, and we wouldn't take it to fact finding. And we would have no plan to do that here. It just doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
And it's, I don't know whether I suspect there's always a possibility there can be confusion about something, but generally speaking, every mediator I've worked with has no interest in what we've already agreed to.
Right.
Only what we have to try to figure out. And so that would be certainly our plan. And we would hope this board would share the same, because it simply helps to get the funnel of getting things into an agreement.
And just, so the strike-through contract language and the underline is just merely track changes, and I have to be honest, that's my preference. It's easy. I have a program that does it, so it works.
Yeah, I do, I often, as you will see eventually, I often make proposals that are not full sections
Yes.
of contracts. I say, change this, or,
Right.
and so if I do repeat something, as you'll see, I don't repeat the whole section, because I don't want to rewrite the whole contract, nor do I want to reread the whole contract each time, so. But no, I think that's a good practice, and so that's what we'll do in our proposal, and as we go on, we'll follow the same format.
Are there any other questions that anyone other than I have?
In terms of ground rules.
In terms of the ground rules, right?
Yeah.
Are there any questions?
What I'll discuss with our people, and what it might make some sense, is at the next meeting, to have an exchange of proposals and just do that, and submit proposals to each other. We could either do it at the meeting or prior to the meeting electronically. I've done it both ways. It depends on, we say, at 12:01 PM on May 18th, the parties will push the send button. No, not quite that bad, but sometimes if there's a chance that people will have an opportunity to read them over, it might make some sense to do it in advance. If not, we can just exchange them on paper.
Advance.
It's interesting, a lot of shaking heads with the advance, if that's possible. And I think.
Nobody wants to, what I know about
Nobody
this
wants to come here and
process,
say.
no one
Right.
wants to do this for the rest of their life, right?
Right, there's no one wants to do it for the rest of their life, and quite honestly, I think it's an issue of being as efficient as possible and addressing everything.
Well, think about that. I think,
So
I haven't confirmed with my learned colleagues.
I'm already hearing whispering on both sides.
You're gonna-
Maybe I said something.
Advance need to be, so they have a chance to study and everything.
Yep, so I think advance, so if we could think about maybe while we're going and we're caucusing to do, to pick the deadline for doing
Sure.
that.
Well, I'm ready, unless I have some changes after you leave. So you pick the date.
Okay, so
When
we
you,
will
when you think
talk about
when you're
that.
gonna have the opportunity to be ready, and then we'll go.
Because there's some things that, the 20th,
That's
No.
okay.
or no?
Of the 20th to prepare, to send the poll electronically to them.
Yes. 'cause we
Okay,
meet on
wait a
the
minute, we're
26th.
meeting
Today's the
on the
11th.
26th.
To give enough time to be able to do it.
Yeah,
So that,
and so-
what we're looking at is next
so
Friday.
it's
potentially.
next Friday is to give them a,
We're on the 11th, are we not?
Yes.
yes. Here we go, Dina.
All right,
So-
7 days.
So,
7
yeah.
work days.
yeah,
Yeah.
so in terms of hearing for that, if the meeting's the
It's on the
26th, yeah.
20th, to give, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
So is that, yeah.
Because
Oh,
by the
wait,
time we get
wait,
it.
we'll get it.
It's
Yeah.
the 20th, right?
Yeah. So that'll be electronically. Will that be all the things that we need to do and have them ready by
Yep,
the 20th, so they can electronically be sent?
right.
And,
Right, is that feasible? Because some of these things are waiting
okay,
for some additional information, perhaps.
okay.
We should be able to do that. Okay.
Just give us the bullet and tell us what we gotta get in the mail now.
Right. Definitely different than a teacher negotiation.
If you
So Mike
submit them
picks
to
that
me,
up.
I'll forward them to the team.
We can do that and
I will
and submit
it
the
to
same way.
you and to
Does the
Ed.
20th work, and that gives you, we're meeting on
20th
the
will be fine.
26th, and that gives you enough time to take a look at it?
Yep.
So then, why don't we, does that work for everyone else here?
That's
I mean,
gonna
we can.
work, that's gonna work because we're gonna make it work.
Right, so if you have any
yeah.
concerns, you're gonna have to email.
Ed's already saying we're gonna make that work, and we're saying that it's 7 days before that, so the 20th and all the things that we need to prepare will be done and ready to be electronically submitted at that time. Okay,
works.
so that's,
So I'm gonna say end of the day, because
Okay,
end of the business day, not end of the day, which are two different things for me. End of business day.
yeah, you'd make me stay up all night.
You'd be at 11:59 going, and then she's gonna mail
Yeah,
it.
been watching,
I
what is it, Colbert, and
Yeah, right.
punching the send button.
Okay, so, let me do that.
Not end of school day, end of business day.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yes, not the end of your business day, the end of my business day, if that's okay with y'all. So,
and the email is just clarification, it'll be going to Norm for him.
Norm, and then
Norm
he'll,
will send to you.
And I will
then
send
will
to all of you.
Ed, and we'll disseminate.
With that.
yep,
You want-
that works.
Oh, that's where that went.
Yeah.
Wow.
That absolutely works, because I think that gives everybody on this side as well enough time
You won't get there.
to do that.
I've already-
I thought we did, so that works out too. So that's good, okay. That's right, we do. Which should make that easier, because the board actually has a meeting scheduled on the 19th to help
Okay.
do that, so that should make that easier for us to do it. Thank you, that's a good.
Okay.
And I do apologize, I know that we're meeting the next time on the May 26th, and was a June date also?
Yes, but that June date is not important.
Okay,
No, because my grandson graduates in grade.
Well, that was the 9th day you're talking
Terrible.
about.
Grade graduation.
Yeah, the June date, if we could change it, that's the middle school
Eighth grade graduation.
celebration.
Oh.
Yes.
Don't do it the 7th,
And
because
they
I
won't
have
allow me to
graduation.
get out.
okay,
So there'd be two of us missing.
So we
So
had
the
said
following
9th, when we're saying the 9th is not a good day.
we're
When
saying
is,
that
when is school
Bump it
over?
ahead 1 week.
The school is over for the children, the 10th.
Right.
So if you all, while we are actually going to talk about your negotiations, if
Okay.
you all think you could come up with another date in June,
Okay.
that,
I'm sorry about that, but I just heard about it.
nope, that's fine. It actually made it easier for me, because as Norm knows, I'm normally not around that week anyhow.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah, I've got quite a bit of them sometimes.
so, I
Let's
mean,
find out when school's over and people are,
so we're looking at, I guess, June 13th is the Monday after school is over.
Close, yeah.
So if you all want to do that, and I think that would be helpful for us, and we'll also do that as part of our
is the
discussion as well.
13th one?
So that's enough, that puts you into the next week, and that's what you want to say.
Yes.
School is over with by then for the
Yeah,
elementary.
Are you
so forth.
looking specifically at the 13th?
No, I just said it as
Okay.
the Monday, and so these
Okay.
guys, I'm just telling these guys, they need to look at their calendars for the week of June 13th to see if we can't find a workable date at that point in time,
Yeah.
Okay,
so that we can address that.
So, Mount Anthony graduation is the 17th, so you want, if I got that right, Mount Anthony graduation is the 17th.
The high school?
Yes,
High school is, I thought it
It's,
was the
uh,
10th.
it's 10th now?
Yeah, 'cause I know I can-
Okay.
It's the Friday before on the 10th.
I thought it was the 10th.
Okay. Okay, all right.
I was gonna say
That's
that
what's happened out here, okay.
non-existent climate change was beneficial for having graduation early, right? And see, that's something I can't take back, because there is, and I'm okay with that.
Good, it worked. You should be.
So
Okay,
what day are we meeting?
Well,
we're
we-
gonna talk about that as
Okay.
well as what the proposals are for the ground rules. So we do
So
Need a
we need
motion.
we need a
To go in
motion
executive
to
session.
go in caucus to
To
discuss.
caucus over,
Uh-huh.
ground rules.
Yes, we want a
proposals.
motion to discuss ground
Understand.
rules and date.
I'll second
Uh, It's been moved and second. All in favor?
it.
Aye. Okay.
If it-
From someone that we come back in the open
Try
session.
those cheese ends.
Contract
They're
negotiation.
really good.
So Ed's moved, Jackie second. Okay, thank you. We're now in open session.
Apparently you all snap at a great deal.
Okay, and we'll like to have some response.
Is this dinner?
Okay.
So we've agreed to electronically exchange proposals on the 20th.
Yep.
We're looking to replace the June date, the June 9th date with, I think we're pretty good the week of the 13th, if that,
So
school is out at that point, and,
there is two board meetings, I apologize, on the 15th, the Mount Anthony and the Pownell. The dates that we seem to have the most consensus about over here were the 13th and the 14th, so that's Monday or Tuesday. I don't know if there is a preference
I
on
think we're
their
open
side.
on, I'm open on both, so.
What time are you gonna plan?
So-
Take a pick.
We said at 4 to 6
4 to-
meetings all the time.
What is it?
They'd like
We-
4 to 6.
4 to 6.
Yes, we could come
Which day?
earlier. Our kids are out of school.
Okay.
We do have some
Well,
people.
we'll meet early anyway, because we'll have your proposals and we'll want to discuss.
Right, so what you should see, and we did have a conversation about that as well, which is that you're going, and it rolls into the next part, which is you'll see a warning for the meeting that's going to begin at 3:30, and that the board is then going to be going into executive session, which would be their
Okay.
pre-caucus time, and then coming back out for open session.
4 o'clock.
At 4 o'clock to begin with what we were doing.
Okay, and which day are we gonna meet? The 13th?
It didn't matter, Monday or Tuesday, so Monday, so,
Okay, Monday the 13th, 4 to 6,
Okay.
we'll be there. We'll be ready to respond to your proposal, you'll have ours, and you can do with it what you wish.
Right.
okay, let's get this right here.
Okay. In terms of what your request was, in terms of keeping the negotiations in executive session, the board discussed it at length, and the board is still convinced that the way it should be dealt with is on a case-by-case basis. So if there are concerns that would make it appropriate for the board to enter into executive session, the board will consider that. I would suggest, Norm, if you think prior to one of our scheduled dates, if you think there's something specific that you'd like to make an argument about having it, or raise the idea about having the session in executive session, let me know ahead of time.
Well, you'll see from our proposal the areas that might be sensitive, I guess. Not that there's anything intentionally, but it may be something where we want to be cautious and to make sure that there's no possibility of identifying. We have no intention of mentioning any student or any other employee.
Right.
But I know under the law that if you're talking about a situation in a school, then there's a possibility that there's too much information and you
Right.
identify someone. So you'll know what our proposal is, and you may decide that that's a sensitive issue, and that's fine with us. We have no intention of having anything untoward to any other person or any student. They're not involved in this.
Right.
Big enough for us.
Right, you know, in terms of, I think, examples given in that instance, I'm always a big fan of the hypothetically speaking.
Uh-huh.
That
Yes.
always works. So, but we are very conscious of what your sensitivity is to doing that. The board feels that its obligation is to consider it on a case-by-case basis for the meetings and for what the topic is going to be being discussed. Other than that, I don't know in terms of where you want to go with the ground rules. I think that other than that part of your proposal, that the board was in agreement with the ground rules.
Okay.
Is that correct?
My immediate suggestion would be we just strike that line.
Is there anything
What
else?
did you
And
say?
We're going to strike that line.
we just take the line out. I mean, I've always worked from the position that ground rules are voluntary. And if there's no agreement, then we just don't have it. So we'd like the sessions in executive session, the board doesn't choose to. We've discussed, we know it's not against the law, but the board certainly has a right to decide that that's what it wants to do. So I'd suggest we just cross out that sentence that says all meetings shall be held in closed or executive session and agree to the ground rules as they are. With that change.
That's that top page there. And so without that, that means that meetings will be right in open session.
It's
Yeah,
right.
just-
And then whatever.
Whenever the board feels that it would be appropriate to go into an executive session, then the board would be.
Right. And we agreed on the
And we agreed on the 26th,
being the third meeting on this sheet.
which is the third meeting, but we've also
Oh, I
agreed
see.
to make 20th
Yeah.
electronically, which I think we
Yeah.
can just clarify that in number 2.
So should we make that the end of the third meeting? Because we'll have submitted the proposals before the third meeting.
Right, but that's
And then if there's
formally.
anything, anyone who wants, either side wants to add at the meeting on the 26th,
In response to whatever was
that
received.
work?
Yep.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
that's what would happen on the 26th. It's-
Mm-hmm. So if we're getting everybody's, if we're switching proposals on the 20th, what Norm is saying, if we're providing them electronically, everybody will have a chance to review those, and if there are things that either team thinks they need to submit as part of their initial proposals in response to what they've seen from the other side, you can, or if it triggers something that we think we forgot something or want to add something to the proposals, we can do so as long as we provide it by the end of that. We have to discuss it
Meeting on
in
the
that
26th.
meeting on the 26th.
And they don't need to be provided in any particular format, just provide them. Could be a sentence or,
Right.
I mean, I think I think we should just have the opportunity to put on the table what we want, and
Yep.
it's good when we know that everything's there, and then we work from that point. Okay?
Okay, so if you're all okay with that, we're going to need a motion to,
If there's no other business today, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, Cindy made the motion, and have a second?
Second.
Hit a second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Well, thank you, and we'll see you at the next meeting on the 26th.